Maya Johnson had cleaned the Wellington mansion for 3 years, but she had never been allowed in Marcus Wellington's private study until that rainy Thursday morning. The billionaire was away on business in Europe, and his assistant had specifically requested that every room be deep cleaned before his return. Maya approached the heavy oak doors with her usual professional demeanor, though something felt different about entering this forbidden space. The study was exactly what she expected from a man worth billions. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined 3 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary. A massive mahogany desk dominated the center of the room, its surface polished to perfection. Persian rugs covered the hardwood floors, and crystal decanters sat on an antique sidebar. But it was the 4th wall that made Maya's breath catch in her throat. Portraits hung in elaborate gold frames, each one depicting someone from the Wellington family legacy. Maya had seen similar displays in other wealthy homes, but, as she began dusting the frames, her eyes landed on a portrait that made her hands freeze mid-motion. The woman in the painting had the same warm brown eyes, the same gentle smile, the same distinctive dimple on the left cheek that Maya saw every morning in the mirror. But that wasn't what made Maya's heart stop. It was the nameplate below the portrait that read, "Elena Wellington, beloved wife 1975 to 2000. The woman Maya had been told was her mother, who had supposedly died in a car accident when Maya was 5, was staring back at her from a billionaire's wall. Maya stepped closer, her feather duster forgotten in her trembling hand. The woman in the portrait was older than the faded photograph Maya kept in her wallet, the only picture she had of her mother. This Elena looked to be in her 30s, wearing an elegant blue dress that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. Her hair was styled perfectly, her skin glowing with the kind of radiance that came from expensive skincare and a life without financial worry. The room began to spin as Maya's mind raced through possibilities. Could this be a coincidence? Could there be another woman who looked exactly like her mother? But the resemblance was uncanny, down to a small scar above the left eyebrow that Maya remembered her mother having. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket, startling her back to reality. It was a text from Mrs. Patterson, the head housekeeper, asking about her progress. Maya quickly typed back that she was nearly finished with the study, though she hadn't touched anything else in the room. Her eyes kept returning to the portrait, searching for any detail that might explain what she was seeing. That's when she noticed something else. In the portrait, Elena was wearing a distinctive necklace, a gold chain with a small pendant shaped like a butterfly. Maya's hand instinctively went to her own throat, where an identical necklace rested against her collarbone. It was the only thing she had left from her mother, given to her by her grandmother before she passed away when Maya was 16. The sound of footsteps in the hallway jolted Maya from her thoughts. She quickly resumed dusting, her movements mechanical as her mind struggled to process what she had discovered. Marcus Wellington's personal assistant, James, appeared in the doorway. "Almost finished in here?" he asked, checking his watch. "Mr. Wellington's flight was moved up. He'll be arriving this evening instead of tomorrow." Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "Just need to finish the bookshelves," she managed. As James walked away, Maya allowed herself one more look at the portrait. The woman's eyes seemed to follow her, and Maya could swear she saw sadness in that painted gaze. Below Elena's portrait was another frame, this one containing a newspaper clipping. Maya moved closer to read the headline. "Wellington heiress dies in tragic accident, leaves behind fortune and grieving husband." The article was dated December 15, 2000. Maya's grandmother had always told her that her mother died on December 18, 2000, 3 days later. The discrepancy might have been nothing, a simple mistake in her grandmother's grief-stricken memory. But combined with everything else Maya was seeing, it felt significant. Maya quickly photographed the portrait, and the newspaper clipping with her phone, making sure the flash was off. Her hands shook as she tried to hold the device steady. She needed evidence of what she was seeing, needed proof that she wasn't losing her mind. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Maya went through the motions of cleaning, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying every conversation she'd ever had with her grandmother about her mother. Rosa Johnson had raised Maya after her mother's death, and she had always been reluctant to discuss the past. "It's too painful, Mija," she would say whenever Maya asked questions. "Your mother loved you very much, and that's all you need to know." But now Maya wondered if there had been other reasons for her grandmother's silence. Had Rosa known something about Elena's real identity? Had she deliberately kept Maya away from the truth? As the day wore on, Maya found herself paying closer attention to the Wellington house in ways she never had before. She noticed family photographs in the main hallway that she had dusted hundreds of times without really looking at them. Most showed Marcus with various business associates, politicians, and socialites. But there were a few older photos that seemed to tell a different story. In one frame, Maya spotted a younger Marcus Wellington standing next to a woman who looked remarkably like the Elena from the portrait. They were at what appeared to be a charity gala, both dressed formally and smiling for the camera. The woman's hand rested on Marcus's arm, and she was wearing the same butterfly necklace that now hung around Maya's neck. Maya's discovery was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus Wellington himself. She heard the front door open and the sound of expensive shoes on marble flooring. Panic seized her chest. She wasn't supposed to know about Elena, wasn't supposed to have seen the portrait. What if her reaction gave her away? "Maya?" Mrs. Patterson's voice called from downstairs. "Mr. Wellington would like to see you in his office." Maya's blood ran cold. Did he know what she had found? Had James mentioned something about her behavior in the study? She made her way downstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. Marcus Wellington stood behind his desk, still wearing his traveling clothes. He was a tall man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that came with decades of wielding power. Maya had always found him intimidating, though he had never been unkind to her. "Maya," he said as she entered the office. "I trust everything went well with the cleaning today?" "Yes, sir," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Everything is finished." Marcus studied her face for a moment, and Maya was certain he could see right through her. But then, he simply nodded and reached for his briefcase. "Excellent. Mrs. Patterson mentioned you've been with us for 3 years now. You've done good work." "Thank you, sir. I'm having a small dinner party tomorrow evening. Nothing too formal, just a few business associates. I'd like you to help serve. There will be extra compensation, of course." Maya nodded, though her mind was still reeling from what she had discovered upstairs. "Of course, Mr. Wellington." As she turned to leave, Marcus called her name again. "Maya? Your grandmother raised you, didn't she? After your parents died?" The question hit Maya like a physical blow. How did he know about her parents? She had never discussed her personal life with him beyond the basic information required for employment. "Yes, sir," she answered carefully. "She did a fine job. You're a good worker, very trustworthy." There was something in his tone that made Maya's skin crawl, though she couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. She left his office feeling more confused and frightened than ever. That night, Maya lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of what she had learned. She pulled out her phone and studied the photographs she had taken of Elena's portrait. In the harsh light of her bedside lamp, the resemblance seemed even more striking. Maya opened her laptop and began searching for information about Elena Wellington. Most of what she found was basic: charity work, social events, the tragic accident that had ended her life. But there were gaps in the timeline that bothered Maya. Elena had apparently married Marcus in 1995, but there was very little information about her life before that. No mention of family, previous relationships, or even her maiden name. The more Maya searched, the more questions arose. If Elena had been married to one of the richest men in the country, why had Maya grown up in poverty? Why had her grandmother struggled to pay bills and put food on the table if Maya was potentially the daughter of a wealthy woman? As the hours passed, Maya found herself thinking about all the times her grandmother had seemed nervous when certain topics came up. Rosa had always been protective, almost paranoid about giving out personal information. She had homeschooled Maya for the first few years after moving to Chicago, claiming the local schools weren't good enough. But now Maya wondered if there had been another reason. Maya remembered how her grandmother would sometimes watch the news with a strange intensity, especially when stories about wealthy families or business scandals came on. And there had been that one time, when Maya was about 12, that Rosa had quickly changed the channel when a story about Marcus Wellington came on the screen. "Why did you do that, Grandma?" Maya had asked. "Rich people's problems aren't our concern, Mija," Rosa had replied, but her hands had been shaking as she held the remote. Now Maya wondered if those rich people's problems had actually been very much their concern. She spent the rest of the night researching, following every lead she could find about Elena Wellington and her mysterious past. By dawn, Maya had compiled a list of questions that demanded answers, but she also realized that getting those answers might be more dangerous than she had initially thought. If Elena Wellington was really her mother, then Maya's entire life had been built on a lie. But more troubling was the question of why that lie had been necessary in the first place. What had happened to Elena that was so terrible that a 5-year-old girl had to be hidden away and given a completely new identity? As Maya prepared for another day of work at the Wellington mansion, she knew she was standing at a crossroads. She could pretend she had never seen the portrait, never made the connection, and continue living her quiet life as a housekeeper. Or she could pursue the truth, no matter where it led or what consequences it might bring. The butterfly necklace felt heavier around her neck as she looked at herself in the mirror. For the first time in her life, Maya saw not just her own reflection, but the face of a woman who might have been stolen from her 25 years ago. The truth was waiting for her in that mansion, hidden behind Marcus Wellington's carefully constructed facade. Maya just hoped she would be strong enough to handle whatever she discovered. Maya arrived at the Wellington mansion the next morning with a plan. She would use the dinner party as an opportunity to learn more about Elena while staying under the radar. But first, she needed to find a way back into Marcus's study to examine the portrait more closely. Her opportunity came during lunch preparation. Mrs. Patterson sent her upstairs to retrieve a serving tray from the storage room near Marcus's office. Maya's heart pounded as she quietly tried the study door, expecting it to be locked. To her surprise, it opened easily. The portrait seemed even more haunting in the afternoon light streaming through the tall windows. Maya approached it slowly, studying every detail of Elena's face. The woman's expression held a sadness that Maya hadn't noticed the day before, as if the artist had captured something beyond the surface beauty. Maya noticed something else she had missed. A small inscription in the corner of the frame. She had to stand on her toes to read it. "EM forever in my heart, MW." The initials EM suggested that Elena's maiden name had started with M. Suddenly, Maya heard voices in the hallway. She quickly moved away from the portrait, and grabbed a book from the shelf, pretending to dust it. Marcus entered with a man Maya didn't recognize, both of them deep in conversation. "The quarterly reports look good," the stranger was saying. "But we need to be careful about the Chicago operation. There's been some renewed interest from investigative journalists." Marcus's expression darkened. "After all these years? What kind of interest?" "Nothing specific yet, but you know how these things work. One loose thread and they start pulling." Maya's blood ran cold. They were talking about Chicago, where she had grown up with her grandmother. Could this be connected to Elena somehow? "We've been careful," Marcus replied. "The Johnson situation was handled properly. There's no trail leading back to us." Maya's hands began to shake. Johnson was her last name, her grandmother's name. They were talking about her family. "Still," the stranger continued, "it might be worth making sure all loose ends stay tied up." "The girl never suspected anything?" "No. She was too young to remember, and Rosa kept her mouth shut just as we agreed. The money we provided ensured her cooperation." Maya felt like the world was tilting beneath her feet. They had paid her grandmother to keep quiet about something. What had Rosa known? What had she been hiding all these years? "What about the necklace?" the stranger asked. "Rosa was supposed to destroy it." Marcus shrugged. "Sentimental old woman. But it doesn't matter. It's not like anyone would connect it to Elena after all this time. Maya's hand flew to her throat, touching the butterfly necklace through her uniform. They were talking about her necklace, the one her grandmother had given her, claiming it belonged to her mother. Maya's been working here for 3 years, Marcus continued. If she suspected anything, she would have shown signs by now. The resemblance is striking, I'll admit, but she has no reason to question her past. The stranger laughed coldly. You always did have a twisted sense of humor, keeping her so close. What if someone else notices the resemblance? Who would? Anyone who knew Elena is either dead or has been bought. Besides, hiding in plain sight has always been the safest strategy. Maya's legs felt weak. She was standing 3 feet away from the man who had apparently orchestrated some kind of conspiracy involving her mother and her entire life. The casual way they discussed her as if she were a chess piece rather than a human being made her stomach turn. The conversation was interrupted by Mrs. Patterson's voice calling from downstairs. Mr. Wellington? The florists are here for tonight's dinner setup. We'll continue this later, Marcus told the stranger. For now, everything stays as it is. No unnecessary risks. Maya managed to slip out of the study before they turned around, but she could barely focus on her work for the rest of the afternoon. Every task felt surreal as she processed what she had overheard. Her grandmother had been paid to keep quiet about something involving Elena. The necklace she wore was significant enough that Marcus Wellington's associates knew about it. And there was some kind of Chicago operation that people were asking questions about. As evening approached and the dinner guests began arriving, Maya found herself studying each face, wondering if any of these people had known Elena. The gathering was smaller than Marcus's usual parties, only 8 guests total. Maya recognized a few faces from newspaper business sections and society pages. While serving the first course, Maya overheard fragments of conversation that seemed innocuous on the surface but took on sinister meanings given what she now knew. The guests spoke about protecting family legacies and managing difficult transitions. One woman mentioned how some secrets are worth keeping forever. It was during the main course that Maya's world shifted again. One of the guests, an elderly woman named Catherine Westbrook, studied Maya's face as she refilled wine glasses. You look familiar, dear, Catherine said. Have we met before? Maya shook her head politely. I don't think so, ma'am. Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly. You remind me of someone. Someone I used to know. She turned to Marcus. Don't you think she looks like? I'm sure you're mistaken. Marcus interrupted smoothly. Maya has one of those faces that seems familiar to everyone. But Catherine wasn't deterred. The eyes especially. And that dimple. It's remarkable how genetics work, isn't it? Sometimes features skip generations, and then, suddenly, they appear again. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Maya noticed that several other guests had stopped eating and were now looking at her with interest. Marcus's jaw was tight with barely controlled tension. Perhaps Maya should check on dessert preparation, Marcus suggested, his tone leaving no room for argument. As Maya retreated to the kitchen, her mind raced. Catherine Westbrook had recognized something in her appearance, something that connected her to someone from the past. Given the timing and context, that someone was almost certainly Elena. Maya spent the next hour in the kitchen, pretending to help with dessert, while actually trying to process everything she had learned. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Stop asking questions. Some things are better left buried. This is your only warning. Terror washed over Maya. Someone was watching her, someone who knew she was getting too close to the truth. But instead of frightening her away, the threat only strengthened her resolve. If someone was willing to threaten her to keep quiet, then whatever had happened to Elena was even worse than Maya had imagined. That night Maya couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about her grandmother's final days, when Rosa had been delirious from medication and had said strange things. Maya had dismissed most of it as the ramblings of a sick woman, but now she wondered if Rosa had been trying to tell her something important. She was so beautiful, Rosa had whispered one night. Like an angel. But angels don't belong in this world, Mija. They get their wings torn off. At the time, Maya had thought Rosa was talking about Maya's mother in general terms. But now she wondered if there had been a more specific meaning. I kept you safe, Rosa had said another time. I kept my promise. But the truth has a way of finding the light, doesn't it? Maya pulled out a box of her grandmother's belongings that she had never fully gone through. Most of it was typical elderly woman stuff, old photos, religious medals, handwritten recipes. But buried at the bottom was something Maya had never noticed before, a safety deposit box key. Rosa had never mentioned having a safety deposit box. Maya had handled all of her grandmother's finances in the final years, and there had been no record of any bank accounts beyond her basic checking and savings. Where had this key come from, and what did it open? Maya spent the rest of the night searching through Rosa's papers, looking for any clue about which bank the key belonged to. Finally, tucked inside an old prayer book, she found a bank statement from 2001, shortly after Elena's supposed death. It was from a bank across town that Rosa had never mentioned, and it showed regular deposits of $5,000 every month for 15 years. Maya's hands trembled as she did the math. Marcus Wellington or someone working for him had been paying her grandmother $75,000 every year to keep quiet about something. The payments had stopped in 2016, the year Rosa died. But why? What had Rosa known that was worth so much money to keep secret? Maya realized she was in real danger now. The threat she had received wasn't idle. These people had been maintaining a conspiracy for over 20 years and paying significant money to keep it buried. They wouldn't hesitate to take action against someone who threatened to expose them. But Maya also realized she couldn't stop now. Elena Wellington might have been her mother, which meant Maya had been robbed not just of her true identity but potentially of an inheritance worth millions of dollars. More importantly, if Elena had died under suspicious circumstances, then justice had never been served. Maya made a decision that would change everything. She would go to that safety deposit box and see what Rosa had hidden there. Whatever she found would either confirm her fears or put them to rest once and for all. But first, she needed to be smarter about her investigation. The people involved in this conspiracy had resources and connections that Maya couldn't match. She would need allies, evidence, and a plan that would protect her if things went wrong. As dawn broke over Chicago, Maya sat at her kitchen table with Rosa's bank statement and the mysterious key, knowing that her life as she knew it was about to end. She was either Elena Wellington's daughter and the rightful heir to a fortune built on lies and possibly murder, or she was a delusional woman chasing shadows and putting herself in terrible danger. Either way, there was no turning back now. The next morning brought another shock. Maya arrived at the Wellington mansion to find police cars in the driveway and Marcus Wellington in handcuffs being led to a patrol car. Mrs. Patterson stood on the front steps, wringing her hands and looking terrified. "What happened?" Maya asked, though her heart was already racing with possibilities. "Catherine Westbrook," Mrs. Patterson whispered. "She was found dead in her hotel room this morning. They're saying it was a heart attack, but the police have questions about last night's dinner party." Maya's blood ran cold. Catherine Westbrook, the woman who had recognized something familiar in Maya's face, was dead less than 12 hours after making that observation. It couldn't be a coincidence. As the police led Marcus away, he turned and looked directly at Maya. Even from a distance, she could see the cold calculation in his eyes. The message was clear. Catherine's death was a warning of what happened to people who knew too much. But Marcus had made one critical mistake. By having Maya work the dinner party, by allowing her to overhear his conversation with the mysterious stranger, and by having Catherine Westbrook recognize her, he had inadvertently provided Maya with witnesses and evidence of the conspiracy. Maya knew she was racing against time now. With Marcus in custody, his associates would be moving quickly to eliminate any remaining loose ends. She had to get to that safety deposit box before they figured out it existed. As she watched the police cars disappear down the mansion's long driveway, Maya touched the butterfly necklace at her throat and made a silent promise to the woman in the portrait upstairs. She would uncover the truth about Elena Wellington's death, no matter what the cost. The game had changed, and Maya was no longer just a housekeeper who had stumbled onto family secrets. She was a potential heir to a fortune, a witness to conspiracy, and quite possibly the only person left alive who could bring justice to Elena Wellington's memory. But first, she had to survive long enough to tell the story. Maya left the Wellington mansion that morning knowing she might never return. With Marcus in police custody and Catherine Westbrook dead, the careful balance that had kept Elena's secrets buried for 25 years was crumbling. Maya had hours, maybe less, before someone realized she was a threat that needed to be eliminated. She drove across Chicago to the bank listed on Rose's hidden statement, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. Every car behind her seemed suspicious, every person on the sidewalk a potential threat. The text message warning echoed in her mind. "This is your only warning." The First National Bank building was an imposing structure of granite and glass that spoke of old money and older secrets. Maya had never set foot inside a bank this prestigious. The lobby was all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, designed to intimidate people like her, working-class people who weren't supposed to have business here. Maya approached the customer service desk with Rose's death certificate and the safety deposit box key, her story carefully rehearsed. She was Rosa Johnson's granddaughter, she explained, handling her grandmother's final affairs. The bank employee, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, expressed sympathy for Maya's loss and began the process of accessing the box. "Mrs. Johnson was a valued customer for many years," the woman said as she led Maya to the safety deposit box vault. "She was always very particular about her privacy. Never came with anyone else, never discussed her business with staff." Maya's heart pounded as they descended into the vault. The safety deposit boxes lined the walls like small mausoleums, each one holding someone's most precious secrets. Box 247 was located in a corner, as if Rosa had chosen the most hidden spot possible. The bank employee used her master key while Maya inserted Rosa's key, and the box opened with a soft click. Inside was a manila envelope thick with documents, several photograph albums, and a small jewelry box. "I'll leave you alone to examine the contents," the bank employee said. "Take all the time you need." Alone in the small viewing room, Maya opened the manila envelope with trembling hands. The first document was a birth certificate, her own birth certificate, but not the one she had always known. This one showed her full name as Maya Elena Montoya Wellington, born December 10, 1995, to parents Elena Maria Montoya and Marcus James Wellington. Maya's legs gave out, and she collapsed into the chair. She wasn't Maya Johnson at all. She was Maya Wellington, daughter of Elena and Marcus, and according to the birth certificate, she had been born 3 years earlier than she had always believed. Her entire identity was a fabrication. The next document was even more shocking, Elena's real death certificate, not the falsified one that had been reported in the newspapers. According to this document, Elena had died on December 18, 2000, not from a car accident, but from acute poisoning, suspected homicide. The signature at the bottom belonged to Dr. Samuel Chin, Cook County Medical Examiner. Maya's hands shook as she continued reading. Elena hadn't died in an accident at all. She had been murdered, and someone had covered it up by bribing officials and falsifying records. The newspaper clipping Maya had seen in Marcus's study was part of an elaborate lie designed to hide the truth. But why had Rosa been involved? Why had she taken Maya and hidden her identity? The answer came in the form of a handwritten letter addressed to Maya in Rosa's careful script. Maya's vision blurred with tears as she read. "My dearest Maya, if you are reading this, then the truth has finally found its way to the light as I always knew it would. I have carried this burden for 25 years, and I pray that God will forgive me for the choices I made. Your mother Elena was my daughter too, though the world never knew it. When Elena was 16, she became pregnant with you after being raped by Marcus Wellington at a charity event where she was volunteering. Marcus was already married then, but his wife was barren, and he saw Elena as a solution to his problems. Marcus forced Elena to marry him by threatening to destroy her family's small business and have her father deported. Elena agreed to protect us, but she made me promise that if anything ever happened to her, I would take you and disappear. When Elena discovered that Marcus was involved in human trafficking operations and was planning to use you as leverage against business rivals when you were older, she threatened to expose him. That's when he decided she had to die. Elena knew what was coming. She begged me to take you and run, to give you a new identity and a chance at a normal life. The night before she died, she brought you to me. You were only 5, and you cried for your mama, but Elena made me promise to tell you she had died in an accident. She thought it would be easier for you to accept than knowing your own father had killed your mother. Marcus paid me to keep quiet, but I took his money only to provide for you. Every dollar went toward your care, your education, your future. I never spent a penny on myself. The jewelry box contains Elena's real engagement ring, not the fake one Marcus had made for the newspapers. The photographs show Elena's real life, before Marcus destroyed it. If you're reading this, it means you've discovered the truth about who you are. You are Maya Elena Montoya Wellington, the rightful heir to everything Marcus built on blood and lies. But more than that, you are your mother's daughter, and she loved you more than life itself. Be careful, Mija. Marcus has killed before, and he will kill again to protect his secrets. But you have something he doesn't, the truth, and the evidence to prove it. Your mother's voice lives in you now. Don't let her death be in vain. All my love, your Grandma Rosa. Maya sobbed as she finished the letter, 25 years of questions finally, answered in the most terrible way possible. Her mother hadn't abandoned her. Elena had died trying to protect her from a monster who happened to be her own father. With shaking hands, Maya opened the jewelry box. Inside was an engagement ring unlike anything she had ever seen. The center stone was a massive diamond surrounded by smaller stones arranged in the shape of a butterfly, the same butterfly that appeared on Maya's necklace. Engraved inside the band was, My beautiful butterfly NW. But there was also a folded piece of paper hidden beneath the ring's cushion. Maya unfolded it to reveal a list of names, dates, and dollar amounts. The heading read, Trafficking Network Chicago Operation. Marcus's name was at the top, followed by a dozen other names that Maya recognized from newspapers and political coverage. Elena had been documenting Marcus's criminal activities. She had names, dates, financial records, everything needed to expose a human trafficking ring that had been operating for decades. This wasn't just about one woman's murder anymore. Elena had uncovered evidence of crimes that had destroyed countless lives. Maya photographed every document, every page of Rose's letter, every entry in Elena's evidence list. She then carefully placed everything back in the safety deposit box except for Elena's real engagement ring, which she slipped onto her right hand. As she prepared to leave the bank, Maya noticed a security camera in the vault area. If Marcus's associates were monitoring her activities, they would soon know about the safety deposit box. She had to move quickly. Maya's first stop was the Cook County Medical Examiner's office. Dr. Samuel Chun was still listed as working there, though he was nearing retirement. Maya walked into his office unannounced, knowing she might not get another chance. Dr. Chun looked up from his paperwork as Maya entered. He was a small, elderly man with intelligent eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Chun, Maya said, I need to ask you about Elena Wellington's autopsy report from December 2000. The color drained from Dr. Chen's face. I'm sorry, but I can't discuss. My name is Maya Wellington. Maya interrupted, showing him Elena's engagement ring on her finger. Elena Wellington was my mother. Dr. Chen stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. Dear God, he whispered. You look exactly like her. You knew my mother was murdered, didn't you? Dr. Chen closed his office door and gestured for Maya to sit. I've been waiting 25 years for someone to ask me that question. Your mother died from digitalis poisoning, a heart medication that's lethal in large doses. It was administered in her food during a dinner party at the Wellington mansion. Why didn't you report it as murder? Dr. Chen's shoulders sagged with decades of guilt. I tried. I filed my report stating suspicious death, recommended a full investigation. But within 24 hours, pressure came from above, way above. The mayor's office, the police commissioner, even the state attorney general. I was told to change my report or lose my job and my medical license. But you kept the real report? Dr. Chen nodded. I couldn't bring myself to destroy it. Elena Wellington was a good woman who was trying to expose terrible crimes. I always hoped that someday, someone would care enough about the truth to ask the right questions. Dr. Chen opened a locked filing cabinet and retrieved a folder marked with Elena's name. Inside were photographs, toxicology reports, and detailed notes describing the evidence of poisoning. There's more, Dr. Chen said grimly. Elena wasn't Marcus's only victim. Over the years, I've seen at least 6 other suspicious deaths connected to the Wellington organization. Business rivals, potential witnesses, people who asked too many questions. But Elena was the one I'll never forget because she was so young, so brave. Maya studied the autopsy photographs, forcing herself to look at the evidence of her mother's final moments. Elena had died in agony, alone except for the monsters who had killed her. Why are you telling me this now? Maya asked. Because 25 years ago, I made a choice to prioritize my own safety over justice for your mother. I've regretted that choice every day since. If you're brave enough to pursue the truth, then I'm finally ready to do the right thing. Dr. Chen made copies of Elena's real autopsy report and all the related evidence. As he handed the files to Maya, he gripped her hands. Your mother would be proud of you, he said. Sometimes the truth hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to shatter everything you thought you knew. For 30-year-old Maya Johnson, that moment came while dusting a portrait in a billionaire's mansion, a portrait of a woman who looked exactly like her mother, who had supposedly died when Maya was just 5 years old. But this woman in the painting was older, dressed in expensive clothes, and standing next to the very man who now employed Maya as his housekeeper. As Maya's hands trembled around the feather duster, one question burned in her mind. If her mother was really dead, why was she smiling from a gilded frame in Marcus Wellington's private study, and why did the nameplate below read, "Beloved wife, Elena Wellington"? The discovery would unravel a web of lies spanning 25 years, expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of society, and force Maya to confront the devastating truth about her identity, her past, and the real reason she had been living a life built on deception.